Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to the Liberty Report. With us today is Daniel McAdams, our co-host. Daniel, good to see you.
Good morning, Dr. Paul. How are you doing?
Doing well, thank you.
Good.
And we have a few things to talk about. We're going to start off with an economic issue, but it's an international issue, and it involves the president. So that's political, and everything Biden does has some relationship to COVID and all that nonsense that goes on. And the basic problem I see is Biden plus most everybody in Washington are interventionists. They're economic planners, and they think they can just sort of play the economy and do what it wants. So there was a headline that caught my attention because this has come up before with other administrations, even Republican administration. They don't like to see prices going up. People don't like prices. And the price of especially gasoline's going up. I think I paid $3 yesterday, but I think some places in the country are paying more than $3.
More than that,
So, and that's a big deal. And I always argue the case, as soon as they get the inflation, the price is going up, that is, not the dollars being printed, the people scream and holler, we don't have enough money, we don't have enough money, get the prices down or do something. They never want to look at it. I said, oh, you mean it's because we spend a lot of money and we get checks when we need money and everybody needs help? That's the reason the price of energy is going up? Yeah, it seems a little strange, but it's really not that complicated. It's that you can figure it out. Devalue the dollar and the prices are going to go up. But Biden's announcement was his administration, plus Biden, is considering tapping into the strategic reserves. And the Republicans have said the same thing before. But the strategic reserves, which matter of fact, there's some very close to us where we're sitting, that in the salt domes that they have, they carve it out and put the oil and take it out of this hole and put it in this hole. I often wondered, why doesn't it leak out? And there are some incidents that it does happen.
Interesting.
But anyway, it's strategic. It's they remember the 70s, and it's national security, and there were shortages and all this stuff. So it was national security. Well, right now, it's not the national security. It's the political thing of people. I don't like to pay $4 for gasoline, but you keep spending your money and get prepared for war and let everybody spend the money. But he's upset. That is, Biden's upset with OPEC and especially Saudi. They have a lot of oil. And guess what? They and the Russians are not exactly happy with us because obviously, our oil policy since Biden's been in office has been totally incoherent. So if you're looking for good supplies, but he, in his efforts to support the greenies, as well as try to provide the oil supply to be consistent in the prices, he's run into trouble because the greenies won and he quit. He quit the XL pipeline up there, and then he got interference. We run the show, for the pipeline going from Russia to Europe, and now we get into trouble all because of our stupid policies. So what we do is we scream and holler at Russia, produce more, bail us out, produce more, and then they go to OPEC begging and pleading, and it is so bad. But that's where they are, and they're getting very upset. But the big thing is not only have they threatened with, it looks like they'll let the water out, let the oil out of the reserves, but then he says he has more things up his sleeve. So really, what else can they do? So we'll find out. But in the meantime, they're not going to solve the problems. Everything they're doing here just prolongs the agony. This is price control. This is mischief. This is interference. interference and manipulation of the marketplace, taking care of special interests, and trying to make all the greenies who now run the Congress, make them happy. And this is the mess we're in. And if they think anything that he has proposed there, or is even possible, that's going to help solve this problem, when the answer is, of course, the thing that we talk about, and that is free market principles.
Well, the president's got a real problem on his hands because gasoline, diesel gasoline certainly is at a 7-year high that goes way back to the Obama administration. Remember what it was like to pay a lot of money for fuel back then. It affects everything. We have this supply chain supposed problem. That affects that as well. It affects getting things from one place to the other. And it's a huge problem for the president because, you know, he announced, as you suggested, to appease a lot of the Green New Deal types in his administration, the energy policy they announced back in January had a few, you know, pretty important points that are now coming home to roost. A, limit hydrocarbon production, limit the emission of greenhouse gases, a moratorium on new drilling permits on federal lands and waters, as you mentioned, kill the Keystone Pipeline, and be very, very ambivalent about shale, which is needed, but it goes against the green agenda. So having done all this, now they're looking around and wondering, well, gosh, why are gas prices so high? Why are we having these big problems? And a lot of it is because when you shut down all the means of production, look at that first clip, and this is from the Zero Hedge article. When you shut down all the means of production, guess what happens? We have that first clip. There you go. U.S. crude production. Look what happened. It went way down. It's way, way down. And in a related way, let's look at this next one. This is also from Zero Hedge. You invert the prices of gas, and it's tracking along with Biden's approval rating. And I think someone in the White House should have a look at that, wonder why he's so unpopular. This is a real problem.
You know, maybe we shouldn't talk so much about the solution, because what if he does it and in 6 months everything is perfect again? They'll reelect him. Fat chance of that happening, right? But, you know, the shale thing has been around a long time. One of the arguments I made when it was starting is technologically, I think it's a very interesting thing. I just don't understand how you go down there in this shale and blast this, and all of a sudden you get oil coming out of it. That to me is pretty amazing technology. But I also said, I wonder if they would be doing that if they, I wonder if they would do that if the credit wasn't easy. You know, if you couldn't go out and borrow from the bank at 1%, maybe they wouldn't do it. So I always thought there was some malinvestment there, and there would have to be some correction. There's probably some of that, but the other correction is just the interference on the regulations, and that has done that. And you're right, that chart shows that, you know, the production of oil just, you know, crashed, and you know, and you can understand why internationally it causes a problem. But, you know, they talk about it internationally, and you see the different factions lining up, but the factions I see are NATO and Russia. NATO and our foreign policy of putting these missiles all over the Far East or the Middle East, near Russian borders, after there was a tentative agreement that we would not do that when NATO was started. We're not going to do that, but we're right all around now. Now there's a statement that we're moving into the Black Sea. Make sure the Black Sea is safe and secure for America. There must be a pipeline going through there. You can't tell, but anyway, there's I think that's the most dangerous, because they're not likely to accommodate our president. They're not likely to say, oh yeah, you guys screwed up, and you're short, and we don't want you to be cold this winter. So we're going to say, we're going to increase production. And you can't, even if they decided right now to turn on the shale oil, my guess is that you don't just have one switch, oh, now we have shale oil. I'll bet you, you know, turning those wells on again are not that easy. So that's not an easy solution either. So what do? They resort to, you know, they resort to the strategic reserves. What if they need them? What are they going to do?
Well, you make a good point, because this is one of the consequences of the U.S. interventionist foreign policy. We go around the world bullying people. We tried to stop the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. We didn't want the Europeans to get gas because we wanted to get
Our gas.
Yeah, they wanted to take ours. We also wanted to hurt Russia. So all this bullying and pushing around happens. And then when we run short on oil, we say, hey guys, would you mind pumping some more oil? And let's actually look at that bonus clip that I sent over. I found this later. But this is Biden trying to hector OPEC into producing more oil. Hey, can we get some more oil? OPEC says to Biden, if you want more oil, pump it yourself. So this is what you
We should
get.
be that.
Yeah. That's what you get when you go around the world doing this and poking your thumb in people's eye. And this is kind of as a funny, this is from the Zero Hedge article. Let's look at that next clip on the regular scale. This is, here's a good example. $100 for a tank of gas, and someone put a sticker on the gas tank. I did that with Biden's face. So that kind of captures the mood of the country, doesn't it?
Right,
now?
well, for sure. But you know, the 70s, with the inflation and all going on there, actually it was, they called it stagflation. They never mentioned monetary inflation, but it was stagflation, but it had a lot to do with oil. And then also there were a lot of regulations, and the OPEC really wasn't strong at that time. They banded together to, boycott us, and that's when there was a lot of anxiety. But we got past that. So there was one other thing that I wanted to mention is that this has to, it will be resolved, but when, who knows? It took a long time in the 70s to resolve it. It really opened up more after Reagan was elected, and some of that stuff was put behind us. But this thing is going to continue, and I think that I think that the odds of them all of a sudden saying, those free market guys, those Austrians, the good Austrians,
yeah.
they know something about this, and maybe it will work. Because it's not complicated, and I remember the saying goes, and I'm sure it was a true saying, when Austria was having runaway inflation, somebody came to, finally a few people knew who Mises was, and the Nazis hadn't invaded and taken over everybody. So they said, what would you do? What would you do now with the prices out of control? And he says, meet me on this corner of square and so, and I'll show you. So they got at the corner, and the printing presses were running, and you could hear them. He says, stop the printing presses, and you'll solve your problem. I doubt if they stopped them that night.
Yeah, that's great.
So,
well, let's move on and put up that next clip while we queue up the next thing that we're going to talk about. It's a little bit of Fauci news, and it's actually quite interesting. If we can find that next clip. Here it is. This is from Breitbart. One of Fauci's top doctors opposes vaccine mandates and will debate ethics at the National Institutes of Health. This is a pretty interesting story.
Yeah, at first I thought he might be debating Fauci, but that's not for sure.
I think it's a panel, more of a panel discussion.
At least it's in their territory,
Yeah.
and it's letting people know that there's not a total dictatorship there. They have the power, and they've gotten away with it, and Fauci certainly has the influence with all the lefties and the Marxists. So, if there is a debate, and I was thinking it would be neat if it was with Fauci, but I suggested, if that is the case, and whoever the debate's with, I think that they should have Rand as the moderator.
Yeah, there we go. That'd be fun.
And,
sell popcorn.
Yeah, we say, but this is neat because it's ideological. It'll bring out ideas. The big shortcoming is hopefully the doors won't be closed and nobody can really hear them. But it sounds like this is going to be public if it ever comes to pass, and then you can't depend on the liberal media to explain what's going on, because this is something that there's a disagreement where you think you're not even allowed. If you disagree and you don't belong to the club, you get censored, and so this is excellent.
I think
Hope it happens.
Yeah. It will, and it's actually scheduled. It's a public hearing. But what's interesting about this is that it exposes this myth that there's a monolith of opinions, that it's basically the science versus all the flat earther, anti-vaxxers, knuckle dragging Trump supporters. because we're talking about Dr. Matthew Mamoli. He's been on the National Institutes for Health for 16 years. According to this article in Breitbart, he recently received an NIH Director's Award, so he's a well-established, well-respected physician who disagrees with the mandate, and it makes you wonder how many colleagues does he have in the NIH that agree with him and disagree with it. I did pull one quote from the article, Dr. Paul, if we can put that next clip up, because it does give a good indication as to what his rationale is for opposing the policy. And he says he opposes vaccine mandates and has declined the coronavirus vaccine himself, arguing that they should be reserved for vulnerable, elderly, and obese Americans. Quote, "I think the way we're using the vaccines is wrong," end quote, he said to Dr. Fauci in an email on July 30th. This from the article. Regarding the existing vaccines, Mamoli reportedly argued that a, quote, blanket vaccination of people at low risk of severe illness could hamper the development of more robust immunity gained across a population from infection. And you and I know what that means, Dr. Paul. That means natural immunity. If you vaccinate everyone, you're going to mess with natural immunity. So here's someone who's eminently qualified to make these judgments and to have this opinion, and he's raising some very important questions.
You know, a generic question I wish they would address and talk about, and ask them if they really believe in the noble lie. Is it permissible and acceptable for government, government dictators and bureaucrats? Are they allowed to lie to the people? And it would be interesting to see if anybody, well, we know they accept this as principle. I mean, they've accepted for how many thousand years or so?
Yeah.
The governments need to lie to the people. And there's a lot of that going on now. But to hear him say it, I think might wake up a few people. Oh yeah, we have to tell the truth. Boy, the worst lie you can commit in this country is if you're talking to a government agent and you tell them a little fib.
Oh yeah, forget it.
If a little fib with the IRS can get you into a lot of trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll see. We'll keep following this and see what happens. We want to tell kind of a semi-good news story because, you know, a lot of these big corporations, they're knuckling under, please government, tell us what to do, we'll do anything, we'll put our boot on the necks of Americans. Well, here's a company that's standing out and has some courage, and I think they deserve people's support. Let's put up this next clip. And to back it up, you know, Aaron Rodgers, a legendary quarterback, one of the greatest football players of all time. He recently got into a lot of hot water because he said, I'm allergic to the shots, I don't want to take them. In consultation with my own physicians, I've come up with my own protocol to deal with this, to prevent myself from getting sick and from passing it on. It includes monoclonal antibodies, it includes ivermectin and a few other things. And so he has completely ridiculed that great scientist Terry Bradshaw, right? Formerly a great quarterback, attacked him brutally. And of course, he was dropped immediately by one of his big sponsors for doing this, and he didn't play in the game on Sunday, which is why they lost. But anyway, one courageous company, State Farm, let's put up the clip. Sorry, I got ahead of myself. Let's put up this clip. State Farm stands by Aaron Rodgers after his vaccine comments. They say, Aaron Rodgers has been a great ambassador for our company for much of the past decade. We don't support some of the statements he has made, but we respect his right to have his own personal point of view. So hats off to State Farm.
That was great. They got my attention, and Rodgers was very explicit. This is my personal view. He wasn't trying to convert anybody, and he wasn't introducing them to another philosophy. He didn't even talk about really in politics. He was just talking about his own life, and does he have a right to take care of a potential illness? And obviously they declined that. But you know, if you're out of sync with the establishment, and you come across on masks, and you say masks don't work, and this is for the birds, you could lose your job and lose a lot of money, and it could be you could be canceled. So I think there should be a cancellation here. I think that, as a matter of fact, only because the thought crossed my mind. you know what, I think I'm going to check my insurance company, wonder who they are, wonder what their position is. Maybe I ought to look into this State Farm, because maybe they have some other good ideas too.
Absolutely. And here's a little taste of what Aaron Rodgers is like, because, you know, they want to portray him as some kind of knuckle dragger, you know, flat earther. He's actually a very intelligent, well-educated UC Berkeley graduate, by the way. But let's put up this great, because this is what he said when everyone was attacking him for following his own protocols. He said, quote, "The right is going to champion me and the left is going to cancel me. I don't give a blank about either of them. Politics is a total sham. I'm not going on Fox News, just like I'm not going to go on CNN." Great statement.
Very good.
Yeah.
We need more of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did he have to sit out one game already?
He did not play Sunday, and they did not do well. I feel bad for the person who filled in for him because it was his first NFL game. But hey, he's no Aaron Rodgers.
Is there an understanding now on when he gets to play again?
I don't know, actually. I haven't followed that, but it'd be interesting to find out what's going to happen with him.
Don't mess around with sports.
Yeah.
It's a big help when people are fussing.
Yes.
Next.
Yes.
Los Angeles. Is this Los Angeles?
Los Angeles.
Thousands gathered?
Yeah.
And they weren't arrested, no concentration camp or anything. And these are city employees, and they're sick and tired of the mandates.
Yeah.
So this is a good news story. Even in California, there's people who are upset. And you know what? We bash them. And California is on the receiving end because of their leadership, and the people allowed their leadership to get this way. But I bet you if you had an honest polling of the people and gave them a few things to say, do you support this, this, and this? I'll bet you they're not all that bad. I bet they'll say, no, I think people have a right to do that, but that's not going to happen right now. It's who has the power, and this is difficult. But the good news is that there were a couple people showed up, and maybe they'll come back again. And there's the sign here, is forced vaccination is inhuman.
Inhuman, yeah.
That's strong.
Well, it was yesterday it took place. It was put on by a group called Firefighters for Freedom, which sounds great. And it's here's John Knox, who's a member of that organization, and here's what he says. That's an overreach on the government's part, because it's not your right to tell me what I do with my health care and what I put into my body. That sounds good. And I mean, I was surprised too. When we have a couple of little video clips we're going to show, I didn't expect there to be that many people here, but that just goes to show that California isn't always exactly what they say it is. So let's play a couple of those clips. Let's do the whole one of that short one, and then just a sampling of the second one, if we can. Here's from the rally.
Overreaching and infusing itself where it doesn't belong is going to threaten each and every one of us, and all of you have your jobs on the line. But until you understand the celestial article of freedom, as Thomas Paine says, and you realize how valuable it is to your children, 245 years of ancestry has given this to you today, and it's time for us to give it to the
That's great. And the second one is even more dramatic in terms of turnout. Let's just watch maybe about 10 seconds of this to just get a flavor of what the totality of the protest. This is a big protest. This is a big protest. Look at how many people were there.
Wow.
Scott Reif is in Air 7 HD with a look at a protest in Grand Park. Scott.
Yeah, Philip, I apologize for the delay here. We're having a technical issue.
That's a lot of people, Dr. Paul, who turned out against the LA City's vaccine mandate.
It's great. The battle is not over yet.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
That's good.
That's right.
So I have one more item.
Yeah, I just have some miscellaneous.
Oh, that's
stuff.
right. You had another one.
No, go ahead. I just have some miscellaneous things at the end.
Yeah, well, mine is sort of in between. I found it just sort of strange. What are they doing? You know, it's so strange. It's so silly sometimes. You can't get angry, but you can say, what's going on in the world? And the one that hit me this weekend was here in Texas, where Texas is getting a bad rap. but they're finding out that the rest of the country is going to get a bad rap too, because in the middle of the night, I understand Biden hauling people around in secret airplanes and distributing so nobody feels cheated and they didn't get enough of the illegals.
Yeah.
You know, they might need some help on running their business operation. So this is Texas filling border barriers gaps with shipping containers. But there's a couple things. Where do all these shipping containers? We've seen them, and they're not being used.
Yeah.
And somehow or another, so far, there's still a fair amount of material transfer, but it's not going to end. So we have this whole demonstration of how far gone the economy is, where you have shipping containers, and you have to use them as barriers. And, you know, I looked at it, and well, how do you do it, though? How do you do it? Most Americans don't think that, you know, they see it as a property right. They walk in, they take over your land, they walk over everybody, then you have to take care of them. There's something about it that, why do they do it? And, you know, I think a long time ago, maybe, you know, off and on 10, 15 years, I've always said that we have the problem because we subsidize something that is not legal, and it costs a lot of money. And the old saying is very authentic, and that is, if you subsidize something, you're going to get more of it. Yeah. So if over time it becomes much more easy for people to become citizens, then you're going to have more do this. And I think that, generally speaking, over the many, many years, you know, immigration has been pretty tolerated in this country, but it gets to the point where I remember when I was running as a libertarian, somebody asked me that question. They were, you know, hardcore and probably leaned toward open borders or something. And I was sympathetic. I hadn't worked out everything in my mind about it. I said, this is important. We should be open. We should let people come in and they assimilate. More than half the country came about that way. I said, but when I ask a question, a rhetorical question, and it's probably answered by now, I says, when does this type of immigration become an invasion?
Yeah.
And a lot of people, but no guns. It's necessarily a lot of violence occur, but it looks like an invasion to some people. And I think it's the lack of respect for property rights, lack of respect for the people who have to pay all the bills, and the tolerance of people coming to our country. I mean, when you meet somebody that comes that just happens to be a tremendous citizen, more American than American, hard-working people, and there are a lot of them that we praise them, but not if it gets out of control, and that's what it is. And this idea, it's hard for me to believe that that Biden is actually making sure people are being distributed in night. I just think there are a couple of spots in California where I bet he doesn't deliver any illegal immigrants.
yeah, probably the nuisance house. Well, I've got a couple of little miscellaneous things, Dr. Paul, and let's put up this next clip. Everyone needs a hero. My hero's name is Fiona Lascelles. Florida girl, 7 years old, suspended for the 36th time for not wearing her mask at school. 36th time she's been suspended from school. Cute little girl. She's got a great future as a libertarian. Let's look at the next one. Then here she gets a nice meeting with Governor DeSantis. It'd be nice if the governor could do something about these schools suspending students for not wearing masks, but at least he gives her some support. Wow. What a great kid. I would recommend probably homeschooling, but hey, that's wonderful. And the last thing I wanted to mention, Dr. Paul, is that, you know, we talk a lot about Alex Berenson, the former New York Times reporter. Very, very good work on the COVID. Very, very good work from the beginning. Well, as you remember, he was suspended indefinitely from Twitter just a couple of months ago for posting that the vaccine effectiveness wanes over time. And he cited a study that showed that. For that was heresy, and he was canceled from Twitter forever. Well, let's look at this last clip. This is interesting because this is the Los Angeles Times just a couple of months later saying the exact same thing. Study shows dramatic decline in effectiveness of all 3 COVID-19 vaccines over time. And this is Clay Travis posted it and makes that point that Alex Berenson was banned, and now the LA Times is writing about it. Maybe they should apologize to Berenson and reinstate him. Now, that would be a pretty good idea.
While you were saying that, the word apology came to my
Yeah,
mind.
yeah.
You know, I think maybe he's somebody that deserves an apology.
Yeah.
But, you know, all along, right, he's going to win what he's fighting for. He's fighting for the truth and integrity. And but he's probably lost a bit, too,
Yeah,
you know, as far as, you know, financials and jobs and that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's all I've got, Dr. Paul, for today. So.
Very good. I want to thank our viewers for tuning in today to the Liberty Report. We're very pleased how things are going. We've had a couple good stories today, and we still earnestly believe that the majority of people do want peace and prosperity. It's just that it's so easy to be pressured by the bureaucrats and the demagogues and scared into fear, the use of fear, whether it's to join in on the war against COVID or the war against the Russians. They're always willing, they're fighting into supporting the demagogues. But I think the only thing that can counteract that is not the use of force. It doesn't work. You can't have rules against speech and all the other things that they use. They use it against us, but that isn't the answer for us to silence the other. The only way we can silence the people who are the authoritarians who would do anything to keep our message out of the public view is to keep preaching the truth. And with the conciliation that you know, no one person knows all the truth. And we haven't had a claim for that, but we do claim that we're very sincere and very earnest and always looking to try to sort it out. And overall, most people can understand and recognize truth. I think the big truths of the world have been around for thousands of years. You know, don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal, and don't kill. Boy, just think if everybody followed those rules, what would the world be like? I'll tell you what, it would be a lot more peaceful and it'd be a lot more prosperous. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today to the Liberty Report. Please come back soon.